What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about marriage? A lot of people think it has to do with love and just good feelings, being able to have that special someone in your life. And that's great and all. But the Bible teaches us that marriage is way more than love. And we learn about marriage by seeing how Christ portrayed love for us on the cross. So in this video, we're just going to touch on why we should refrain or jumping too quickly into getting married, because I know in today's day and age, a lot of Christians, they're not waiting because they feel like it's something that they just have to jump the gun on as soon as they see it. Now, while that may be the case for some people, I think that for most people, that's not the case. We should definitely be discerning and just trust in God's timing. So let's just jump right into it. Now, of course, the main verse I really wanted to pinpoint and have it be like the main verse that this video centers around is Ephesians 5:25 through 33, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. But let's just dig deep into what it really means to be that ideal husband. Ephesians 5:25 through 28 says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself." So if we really get down to the real meaning of this word, we're going to come to find that a lot of marriage really has to do with forgetting about yourself and denying your own needs over the other person's need, because this is exactly what Christ did, for us, for the church. And that is something that you don't typically hear in the world, because people are typically accustomed to wanting to have their own needs met. We live in a society where it's all about self-preservation and everyone's on fence trying to protect their hearts, trying to protect their feelings from getting hurt. And it's just about me, me, me. What can you do for me? And as you can see, this is just very egocentric, and it's leading to a lot of broken relationships and divorces. And this is exactly why verse 31, I didn't touch on it earlier, but it says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." It's not about my needs over her needs or her needs over my needs. Yes, that's how someone should behave for a marriage to flourish, where they're not putting their own needs over the other partner. The man and the woman are supposed to be outdoing each other in submission. Now, this is something, I don't want to take credit for it. This is something that I heard at my church, and it really did bring light onto the fact that when you come into a marriage, you're not supposed to be thinking about what can I gain from this, or how am I supposed to make sure that my needs are being met. But marriage is really ordained by God, where it's supposed to be sanctifying the both of you. It's supposed to be bringing both of you closer to Christ. And so if you're just caught up with what can this person do for me, or are my needs being met, you're not really doing it from a place of love, because you're always on edge and you're always acting out in a way where you're making sure, if I do this for my spouse, am I going to make sure that she's reciprocating it? And while it may seem like that's what an ideal relationship looks like, where you're doing something for someone and they're supposed to like pay you back, but that's transactional. You're doing it not out of pure genuine love, but you're doing it because you're expecting something in return. And so that's pretty much what that verse is talking about, that the two of you will be joined together to become one flesh. You're no longer two separate persons. You're now just a team, pretty much, where you're trying to uphold the relationship and not necessarily uphold yourself and your own needs. But I really wanted to put out this video mainly for the men out there, but it seems like a lot of men out there are kind of rushing the process, where they're desperate to find their wives, when I think that would be a huge mistake, because this is going to be the biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life after, deciding to follow Christ. And I strongly believe that every man should be spiritually, mentally, and emotionally equipped before committing to marriage. Because if you're still struggling with lust, if you're still struggling to get by financially, I know it's difficult and there's a lot of trials and temptations and stuff we need to go through as men. But us men, we really need to start honing in and recognizing the fact a lot of it is going to fall on our shoulders at the end of the day, just like Christ did. Everything fell on Christ's shoulder. He was the one that had to go through all the pain, through the suffering, to sanctify the church, which ultimately is going to be our wives. And so until you really start to understand what it really entails to be in a marriage, what it's going to demand of you, then you really should not be thinking of marriage as of right now. Rather focusing on honing and building your relationship relationship with Christ. Because we know that a husband is called to love as Christ loved. If you still have bitterness with your girlfriend and you're still letting your ego and selfishness really dictate the outcomes of your relationship, then you definitely need to start getting into your word more and seeking that quiet time and space with Jesus and allowing him to just mend your heart and let him show you the areas in your life where you're still falling short and you're still letting your flesh dictate how you should be behaving ultimately. Now, I do want to share something that I recently learned, which is the fact that men, since we are the bride of Christ, everyone is the bride of Christ, of course, but at least for me being a guy, it feels like it requires me to learn more how to be a bride of Christ so that when I do get into a relationship, when I do get into marriage, I'm going to know what it feels like for her to be my bride because I'm the bride of Christ. I can't be a good bridegroom if I'm not learning how to be sanctified and pruned by Christ. Because knowing the fact that me being Christ's bride, I fall short in so many areas, then once I do get into that marriage and my wife is not able to meet certain expectations, or where we're kind of struggling, where I deem like something is the best path to follow but she's resisting, now I can look at it from the lenses of me being the exact same way with Christ. I fall short with Christ just as she's going to fall short with me, and now I can extend the grace that Christ has given me onto her. Now, I do want to throw up this video. Shout out to Tim Ross, Upset the Gram, if you're not already familiar. He really touches on how love is going to require work, especially in marriage, and how it's not really as easy and what people expect it to be. So let's just quickly watch this clip on why it's so important that we truly get a better understanding of love and marriage.
You are never going to find out enough about your partner to make a lifelong decision. I'm going to say it again. You will never find out enough about your partner to make a lifelong decision. You will find out as much as you can to get to the altar. What you know gets you to the altar. And what you make a vow to is what you do not know. That's why it says better or worse. Because you don't know. If you've been dating 3+ years, you probably living together at some point, y'all been having sex with each other, y'all been filling each other out, and so you think, oh, this dating ship is going to be the same thing as this marriage ship. It's a different boat. Dating and marriage are not the same thing. When the light of matrimony hits that marriage, that's when you're going to find out what you didn't know. All the dope relationships that you see, oh my God, this is goals, this is relationship goals, I want that for me. Them jokers worked. They got over their differences. They got over their egos. They got over their pettiness. They apologized. They worked. I've seen marriages survive infidelity. I've seen marriages survive no money. I've seen marriages survive the death of a child. I've never seen a marriage survive pride. I've never seen a marriage survive ego. I've never seen a marriage survive bitterness and vindictiveness and unforgiveness. I've never seen that. All that other stuff, light work, if you got the tools.
Yeah, I mean, that's powerful stuff right there. Like the fact that we will never know enough about our partner, that says a lot, because it really should be obvious the fact that we're not going to completely know everything there is about a person until we do life with them, right? And that's where covenant comes into the picture, because you can't just leave someone once you see that one thing that's really getting in the way of the relationship. You're supposed to work through it together as mature people under Christ and find a solution, whatever it takes. Like he just said, when people go to the altar for better or for worse. And I think a lot of people are just quick to, especially people that are living on like worldly terms, and they don't look at marriage as something that's sacred and holy. They just want to dip as soon as they see the first signal of issues and conflict. And I think that's really not the way we should be going about marriage. And so another aspect of marriage I feel that us guys should really conquer and take head on is the fact of lust. And I was talking about this in my previous video, so if you want to check it out, it's right here. I was talking about how lust is really something that can really make or break your marriage, because if you're allowing your temptations to really corrupt your marriage and you're easily swayed by all of these distractions, and you haven't really taken that up to God and letting him work those areas in your life, it's going to be really hard for you to be with your wife in harmony and peace and understanding each other's needs when you're so caught up with all these other things that are going on in the background. Because we know that lust distorts love, and it's just going to lead to infidelity, addiction, and ultimately just dissatisfaction in your marriage if that's something that you have not dealt with. And another thing I want to point at is that marriage doesn't cure lust. So if you feel like you're going to enter into marriage and now that's going to make you be loyal, now that you have the ability to have sex freely, you're completely wrong. Because if you still have those desires and you're not able to control them at all, then matrimony is going to be super hard. Because if your wife is not able to meet your needs, because who knows, once you're having kids and you have all these other things going on in your life, then there might not be a lot of time available for you guys to have, that intimate time. Of course, it is going to require intention to make sure that you guys are always meeting each other's needs in that aspect. But let's say there's a time where it's just not possible and you're craving that badly and you're not able to just put that in the back burner in the meantime, then it's just gonna crumble your relationship if you really allow that to take over you. And so the cure to lust, again, isn't marriage, it's full submission to Christ and just having that discipline that you can flee from temptations. James 4:7 says, submit yourself to God and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So if we learn to put that into practice before marriage, then it's just going to be way better off for us. Another topic I wanted to touch about in this video is the fact that obviously as men, we're called to be leaders and providers. Leading and providing is not only about money, but also how are you contributing yourself to the relationship and to the family as a whole. If you're out there and you're working your butt off, but you're providing no time to go on those dates with your wife, and you have no time to go to your son's soccer practice, to your girl's ballerina class, whatever it may be, then that's an issue. Because trust me, I've dealt with this in my life where my dad, he was a provider. He was definitely a hardworking man, but he wasn't able to be there for me because he thought his sole purpose was just to put food on a table. And while yes, that is important, that is one of the main responsibilities as us men. But if we're not able to be there for our loved ones, then how are we supposed to cultivate those meaningful, deep relationships with them? And so if we look at 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives and especially for their own household has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. And so, yes, definitely make sure that you are financially stable, that you are able to provide for yourself. Because if you're not able to provide for yourself, then it's going to be way harder for you to provide for the people that you care about. So of course, make sure that you have your finances in order, but also make sure that you're aware on what those leadership qualities are. And don't get it confused. Leadership isn't about control. It's about serving, guiding, and sacrificing yourselves for your loved ones, just as Christ did. And so while Jesus was a provider, he was also emotionally in tune with his feelings. I mean, it's in the Bible. Jesus wept. And I feel like a lot of men are scared to cry. They're scared to cry in front of their loved ones. They're scared to show those emotions. And don't get me wrong, I'm right there with you. I used to struggle sharing that soft side of myself where I didn't want to cry in front of people, where I was scared to really demonstrate or express myself because I thought I would be rejected. But it wasn't until Christ really started to soften my heart and tell me that you're not supposed to hold back your feelings, because if you're just leaving those feelings inside and you're just bottling them up inside, sooner or later you're going to snap and all of it is just going to come rushing out of you in a way that's going to be way worse. So it's important that us men are not only providers, but we're also able to nurture when it is necessary. Because I'm telling you, once you start being aware of your emotions and you start being more emotionally intelligent, your relationships are going to grow that much deeper and that much fruitful. In order for a marriage to really be fruitful, it is going to require you to be emotionally mature, patient, and just wise overall with how you are showing up for the people that you love. So as you can see, Christ was a comprehensive man. He wasn't just a protector, a provider, and a fighter. He was a lover. He knew how to be a nurturer. He knew when to cry. He knew how to stand up for the people that he cared and loved about. And he knew how to demonstrate humility and self-control. And if you want to learn more about this, there's this book that I recently picked up by Jason Wilson which is called The Man the Moment Demands. So if you're interested in reading this book, I'll leave a link down in the description for you to check it out. So ultimately, what the world sold you on what marriage is completely wrong. Marriage is going to take a lot of hard work, and it is going to take a lot of maturity for you to show up and really deny yourself, because it really isn't about us at the end of the day. It's about us showing up as people who are willing to serve, who are willing to outdo each other, who are willing to sacrifice our needs for the other person as Jesus Christ did. This is exactly how marriage is supposed to be seen. Because once you truly learn what the gospel of Christ stands for and you apply it in your life, you are going to see your marriage be a full blessing in your life. But of course, if we don't have a strong foundation in Christ, then marriage is going to be a struggle instead of a blessing. So don't feel like you have to rush. I know the Bible says that it is better for one to marry than to burn with passion. But I'm telling you, if you allow Christ to take the wheel of your life and you just submit in full authority to him, you will be able to have that self-control and have that discipline to live according to God's will. And if you're really serious about marriage and you feel like that's what God has called for your life, I would first be serious about becoming a man of God before becoming a man in marriage. And don't be discouraged. Trust that God will present you your wife in due time. But right now, just focus on your relationship with God. Focus on strengthening your faith and being a better leader, being a better provider, and trust that God will see you through in this. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to bless the like button, comment down below, and subscribe. And let me know what areas in your life you feel like you need to work on before getting married. But other than that, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care. Peace. I am chosen, not forsaken.